Hello, I'm Miss Ginsburg with KnowAtom, and today we're going to be reading Glaciers and Earth's Past. This is a lab manual in Unit 3. Section 1, Flowing Glaciers, Studying Earth's Ice. Every month during the summer, a ship carrying scientists and support staff arrives at a small research station on an island in Antarctica. This station is called Palmer Station. It is one of 3 stations that the United States has on Antarctica, which is Earth's most southern continent. About 98% of the continent is covered by ice. It is the coldest, driest continent in the world. Living in Antarctica is unlike life anywhere else. The station is so remote that all supplies arrive by ship, usually about once a month. Most of the scientists at the station studies marine biology. They focus on the wildlife that live in the region, including penguins and elephant seals. The station also acts as a base for scientists who collect different kinds of data about how the ice is changing as Earth's temperature warms. People who live in Antarctica have to adjust to the cold and also the extreme days and nights. The sun shines for nearly 24 hours a day during the summer, and then, for a couple of weeks during the winter, there is no direct sunlight. The sun rises a few degrees above the horizon, but it stays behind a glacier, so the station remains in its shadow. A glacier is a flowing mass of ice and snow that forms on mountaintops and near the North and South Poles. The entire continent of Antarctica is made up of glaciers. Glaciers form when snow accumulates in the same area over many years. Each year, new layers of snow bury and compress the previous layers, similar to how layers of sediment compress over time to form sedimentary rock. Over many years, the snow becomes more compacted and denser until it turns into ice. Glaciers cover 15 million square kilometers of Earth's land surface and hold ice that can be hundreds or hundreds of thousands of years old. How glaciers move. Even though they are made of layers of solid ice, glaciers flow like powerful rivers. The weight of a glacier is what causes it to move. Weight is the gravitational force exerted on an object by a planet or moon. Gravity is the attractive force between all matter. Gravity is a result of an object's mass. The more massive an object is, the more its gravity will pull on other objects. Non-scientists often think that an object's weight is the same as its mass. The two are related because an object's weight depends on its mass. However, weight also depends on the force of gravity. Here on Earth, weight is calculated by multiplying the object's mass by the force of Earth's gravity. Glaciers are so massive that Earth's gravity pulls down on the upper layers of ice, causing them to slowly move downward. This is possible because ice is softer than rock. The force of the glacier's own weight deforms the ice so that it flows down mountains or spreads out across plains or the oceans. At the same time as glaciers flow, they can also either expand or retreat. A glacier expands when winter snowfalls are greater than summer snow melt. It retreats when winter snowfalls are less than summer snow melt. Most glaciers expand or retreat very slowly. It can take many years for there to be a significant change. However, sometimes glaciers retreat very quickly. For example, Muir Glacier in Alaska has retreated 12 kilometers or 7 miles in just 40 years. Ocean water now fills the valley where the glacier used to be. Glaciers change the land. As glaciers move, they contribute to the cycling of Earth's materials by reshaping the land and carving out lakes, valleys, and fjords. Glaciers weather and erode Earth's materials as they move over them. Remember that weathering is the breakdown of rock into smaller pieces of sediment from exposure to wind, water, and/or biological forces. Erosion is the transport of that sediment to new locations. Weathered Earth materials become frozen to the bottom of the glacier and get carried along with it. Those pieces of sediment get dragged over the land, weathering the land in the same way that sandpaper wears down and smooths objects. They can also be deposited far away from their original location. The eroded sediment that is deposited as glaciers retreat and expand is called glacial till. Moraines are narrow ridges that are left behind from glacial till gathered on a glacier's surface or sides. As glaciers erode Earth's materials, they carve out the land beneath them. A result of this is that the movement of a glacier can significantly change the landscape. For example, the movement of glaciers can create glaciated valleys. These valleys are usually very deep with vertical walls. As glaciers recede, they can also create fjords, which are long and narrow valleys. They are often U-shaped with steep sides and a rounded bottom. When seawater fills the land, it creates fjords. Lakes can also form when pieces of glacial ice break off and melt. These lakes are usually shallow and filled with sediment from the glacial ice. Scientists can determine the location and movement of past glaciers by studying the landforms they changed and formed. Types of glaciers. There are two kinds of glaciers, continental glaciers and alpine glaciers. Antarctica is the world's largest continental glacier. Continental glaciers are masses of ice and snow that permanently cover an extensive area of land. They are also known as ice sheets, and they cover large areas of land in Earth's polar regions. The Antarctica ice sheet has existed for at least 40 million years, and it is 4.8 kilometers or 3 miles thick in places. Scientists estimate that if it were entirely to melt, it would cause sea levels around the world to rise 60 meters or 200 feet. Alpine glaciers are glaciers that form on mountains and flow down valleys. They are much smaller than continental glaciers, and they are found all over the world. They form at high altitudes where the air is thin and temperatures are low. The ice moves downward by riding over a layer of melt water at the glacier's base. At the top of the mountain, glaciers have a kind of potential energy called gravitational energy, which is the energy stored in an object as a result of its vertical position or height. The taller the mountain, the more gravitational energy the glacier has. This is a cause and effect relationship. The height of the mountain causes the amount of energy stored in the glacier to change. Once the glacier starts moving, that gravitational potential energy transfers into kinetic energy. As the glacier moves down the mountain, gravitational potential energy is constantly transforming into kinetic energy. Part of a global cycle. One reason that scientists study the Antarctic glaciers is that the glaciers are an important part of the global water cycle. The water cycle is the circulation of water through the hydrosphere from Earth's surface to the atmosphere and back. Water is continually changing from a solid to a liquid or gas and back to a solid, depending on the amount of thermal energy or heat present from the sun. Glaciers currently cover 10% of the planet. They hold almost 70% of the world's fresh water. The water held in glaciers is in storage. Some of the water in Antarctica has been there for thousands of years. Because of this, glaciers are considered reservoirs. Reservoirs are places where water is stored for a period of time, such as glaciers, oceans, and the atmosphere. Most of the water in glaciers is solid ice. Remember that solids have the least amount of thermal energy of all of the states of matter. Water molecules in solid ice are closely packed together and vibrate in place. Water in the atmosphere is a gas called water vapor. Much of the water in the atmosphere cycles between liquid water and water vapor through two processes, precipitation and evaporation. Both of these processes are considered flows because they are paths that water takes between reservoirs. Evaporation is the process of liquid water changing into water vapor, its gas state. Water evaporates when enough thermal energy is present. Like all liquids, the molecules that make up liquid water are less tightly packed than they are in a solid. They are in constant contact with one another, but they have enough energy to slide past one another. When thermal energy is added to liquid water, the atoms and molecules begin to speed up. When enough thermal energy is added, the atoms or molecules will move so quickly that the water expands, becoming water vapor. Water vapor in the atmosphere forms clouds, where it transfers some of its thermal energy to the cooler atmosphere. This causes the water molecules to cool off and condense, turning back into liquid water. Gravity pulls down on the liquid water, pulling it back to Earth's surface. Precipitation is water falling back to Earth's surface in the form of rain, snow, sleet, or hail. Some of the water that reaches Earth's surface is absorbed into the ground as groundwater. Some is absorbed by the biosphere, the Earth system made up of all living things on Earth, including plants through their roots and animals when they drink. Plant transpiration is the process of water moving through plants from their roots to their leaves, where it is released back to the atmosphere as water vapor. The rest of the water collects on Earth's surface in the ocean, lakes, and rivers where it moves downhill, pulled by the force of Earth's gravity. When enough thermal energy from the sun warms water on Earth's surface, it evaporates back into the atmosphere. When living things die and their bodies decompose, the water they've stored in their bodies returns to Earth's surface. There are many paths that water molecules can take as they cycle between ice, liquid water, and water vapor. The water molecules that evaporate from a lake might fall to the surface as rain, or they might make their way to Antarctica, where they fall as snow and become part of a glacier. Over time, they might melt, becoming part of a river or the ocean. Or they might be absorbed by a plant and return to the atmosphere through transpiration. Section 2. A changing climate. Storing ice. The National Ice Core Laboratory in Colorado is not your typical science laboratory. Scientists inside the lab wear ski parkas, insulated gloves, and boots as they work. They need to dress warmly because the lab is kept at negative 23 degrees Celsius or negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. And the sound of saws buzzing is a common sound. This is because scientists measure and cut pieces of Antarctic glacier ice from massive ice cores stored in the laboratory. An ice core is a cylinder of ice drilled out of glaciers that contain layers of snow, dust, volcanic ash, atmospheric gases, and microbes from past time periods. Scientists from all over the country come to the National Ice Core Laboratory to study pieces of ice cores that are stored there. The laboratory holds ice cores from glaciers around the world. For example, one project includes ice cores from a giant, ancient Antarctic ice sheet that is more than 70,000 years old. A team of scientists traveled to Antarctica to drill the ice cores and then sent them back to the laboratory. Ice cores are important for scientists who want to learn about Earth's changing climate. Climate is the average weather in a location over 30 years or more. Weather is the conditions of the atmosphere, temperature, humidity, wind speed, and precipitation at a particular place and time. Dust, volcanic ash, air bubbles, and sediment trapped in glacial ice can reveal information about the climate on Earth at the time they were trapped in ice. Earth and the Sun. Scientists who study climate look at a variety of factors because Earth's climate is complex. There are many variables that affect climate, but the position of Earth relative to the Sun is believed to be the most important because the Sun provides thermal energy that heats the planet. However, Earth's surface isn't heated evenly. This means some parts of the planet are heated more than others. This uneven heating has a major influence on weather and climate. Earth is tilted 23.5 degrees on its axis. The axis is an imaginary line that goes from the North Pole to the South Pole. Every 24 hours, Earth rotates completely on its axis. As Earth rotates, part of the planet gets light and then dark. The sun always shines, but its light only hits one half of the planet at a time. This is why we have day and night. It is widely believed that the equator is warmer than the other parts of the planet because it is closest to the sun. This is not true. It is actually Earth's tilt and its curved shape that are responsible for climate differences. At the equator, the sun's rays are more direct and concentrated because of Earth's curved shape. Moving north or south of the equator, the sun's rays are spread over a large area, so each square meter of Earth's surface receives less solar energy. This is why Antarctica is so cold. It is located at the South Pole, so the sun's rays are less concentrated throughout the year. The amount of energy reaching different hemispheres of Earth also changes as Earth orbits the sun. As Earth moves around the sun, the amount of sunlight that reaches the planet changes over a year. A year is the length of time it takes Earth to completely orbit the sun, about 365 days. Earth's orbit causes seasons, periods of time characterized by specific weather patterns and by the length of day and night. People sometimes believe that Earth has seasons because Earth is closest to the sun in the summer, and this is why the summer is so much hotter than the winter. However, the distance between Earth and the sun is relatively constant during Earth's orbit. Earth experiences seasons because of the planet's tilt on its axis as it orbits the sun. As Earth orbits the sun, its tilted axis always points in the same direction, toward the North Star. So, different parts of Earth get the sun's direct rays throughout the year. For half of the year, Earth's North Pole is tilted toward the sun. When the North Pole is tilted toward the sun shines more directly on the northern hemisphere. This is because the sun's rays hit Earth at a higher angle. This causes temperatures to be warmer. At the same time, the sun is shining less directly on the southern hemisphere. This is because the sun's rays are hitting Earth at a lower angle. This causes the sun's rays to spread out over more space, which results in cooler temperatures. This results in summer in the north and winter in the south. For the other half of the year, Earth's North Pole is tilted away from the sun. This results in winter in the north and summer in the south. Seasons occur cyclically, which means they occur once in a set period of time. Each season occurs once every year because that is how long it takes the planet to complete one full orbit around the sun. Antarctica experiences 2 seasons every year, winter and summer. More temperate locations experience 4 seasons, summer, fall, winter, and spring. Spring and fall occur during the transition between summer and winter, and they take place at opposite times in each hemisphere. The tropical region also experiences 2 seasons, but unlike the polar regions, its 2 seasons are the wet season and the dry season. Earth's tilt, rotation, and orbit explain why people living at Palmer Station in Antarctica experience almost 24 hours of daylight during the summer and almost constant darkness during the winter. When winter comes to Antarctica, the South Pole is tilted away from the sun. As a result, many places on the continent experience polar night, when the sun never rises above the horizon. Palmer Station is located far enough north that the sun rises above the horizon for a couple of hours before setting. However, the sun stays behind a glacier, so the station remains in the shadows during this time. In the summer in Antarctica, the South Pole is tilted toward the sun. Because Antarctica is so far south, it remains in sunlight for almost 24 hours a day. In some locations in Antarctica, the sun never sets and it is light for a full 24 hours. This is called midnight sun. In contrast, regions near the equator experience about 12 hours of day and night throughout the year. An icy weather report. Long-term changes in Earth's climate are not as easy to explain as the seasons. Scientists believe that Earth is 4.5 billion years old. During Earth's history, the planet has been without glaciers longer than it has been with glaciers. Glaciers only form when the planet does not receive enough solar energy for snowfall to completely melt over the summer. Scientists use scientific instruments to read ice cores, like a weather report that includes weather data from year to year, going back hundreds or thousands of years. This is possible because ice cores contain evidence of past changes. Air bubbles contain atmospheric gases from hundreds or thousands of years ago. Volcanic ash reveals volcanic activity. The composition of the snow in a particular layer can reveal the temperature. Scientists can also look for patterns in the ice cores. Summer layers in an ice core are lighter than winter layers. Thicker bands indicate a longer climate period, while narrower bands indicate a shorter climate period. Warmer temperatures are often followed by increased biological activity because living things need a certain temperature to survive. Because of ice cores, scientists know that in Earth's history there have been several ice ages. Global climates marked by long periods of cold temperatures that cause glacial formation and expansion. Glaciers expand during the cold periods of an ice age. At the height of the last cold period, about 100,000 years ago, glaciers reached down to the city of Chicago and up to the middle of South America. This last cold period was called the Great Ice Age. Scientists believe we are currently living in the warm period of Earth's fifth ice age, which began about 10,000 years ago. It is a warm period because glaciers are present but retreating. There are complex variables that influence the climate at any given time and can cause it to change. For example, sudden events such as a volcanic eruption or a forest fire can impact the climate. Volcanic eruptions send ash particles into the environment, blocking sunlight from reaching Earth's surface. This contributes to Earth's cooling. However, volcanoes also release carbon dioxide, which causes warming over millions of years because it traps thermal energy from the sun. For this reason, carbon dioxide, along with water vapor and methane, are called greenhouse gases. Forest fires release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. But if a forest regrows after the fire, the trees and other plants will remove about the same amount of carbon dioxide as was released into the environment during the burning. Other changes can be more long-term. For example, the path of Earth's orbit around the sun has changed over time, as has the way Earth tilts toward the sun. Both of these factors influence how much thermal energy from the sun Earth absorbs, which in turn affects Earth's temperature and climate. A warming climate. Scientists believe that in recent decades, the most dramatic influence on Earth's climate has been human activities, primarily the burning of fossil fuels for energy. As fuels are burned, carbon dioxide is released back into the environment. Scientists know that Earth has warmed by 0.6 degrees Celsius or 1 degree Fahrenheit in the last 100 years. There is widespread agreement among scientists that the climate changes we see today are a direct result of human activities. This is mostly because of how rapidly the changes are taking place. By studying ancient air bubbles trapped deep in the ice of Greenland and Antarctica, scientists can tell how much carbon dioxide was present long ago. By using that data and comparing it to current measurements, scientists have discovered that there is more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now than at any other time in 650,000 years. One of the reasons that scientists are studying ice cores is to try to better understand the relationship between levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and rising ocean levels caused by melting glaciers. For example, one team of scientists concluded that if current warming trends continue, most of the West Antarctic ice sheet would melt or even disappear. They came to this conclusion after looking at a rock core sample dating back 2 million to 5 million years ago. That time period was characterized by warmer temperatures and higher levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The relationship between Earth's temperature, glaciers, and sea levels has real implications for people living in low-lying coastal areas near the ocean. This is because the presence of glaciers on Earth affects the water cycle by changing ocean levels. Because glaciers are large collections of fresh water, the main source of this water is cycled from the oceans. As glaciers form, sea levels drop, expanding coastlines and revealing undersea islands. As glaciers melt, sea levels rise, covering the land with water. Section 3. Clues from Past Life. Forests in Antarctica. Jane Francis is a scientist who has spent years exploring Antarctica. Her passion isn't ice, however. She is fascinated by evidence suggesting that Antarctica was once covered by rainforests. This evidence is mostly in the form of fossils, the remains of ancient animal and plants, the traces or impressions of living things from past geologic ages, or the traces of their activities. Francis and other scientists have found fossilized leaves, twigs, and logs that came from large trees in Antarctica. These fossils tell scientists that millions of years ago, Earth was much warmer. The glaciers and polar ice caps that currently exist were melted, and the land that is now covered in ice was a lush forest. This discovery led to more questions. One big question was how plants could survive in the almost total darkness of the Antarctic winter. Plants need sunlight to make their own food through photosynthesis. During the winter, plants in Antarctica would have had to rely on food they stored within their leaves and other structures. Scientists have been investigating how plants that once grew on Antarctica would have been able to survive in this near darkness. For example, in one experiment, scientists grew plants in dark greenhouses. They discovered that the particular kind of plant that we're testing was able to photosynthesize for 24 hours during the summer. This allowed them to store up large amounts of food. Connected continents. When scientists first discovered fossils of an ancient seed fern tree in Antarctica, these fossils told scientists about more than past changes in Earth's climate. They also provided evidence that Earth's surface has looked dramatically different in its past because of moving tectonic plates. Remember that tectonic plates are drifting slabs of solid rock that make up Earth's surface. Fossils of the same kind of ancient seed fern tree scientists discovered on Antarctica were also found in South America, South Africa, and Australia. Scientists believe that these similarities occurred because the continents were once joined together in a supercontinent called Pangaea. Over millions of years, the plates that the continents are part of kept moving, eventually breaking apart the landmass into the 7 continents that exist today: Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia, Europe, North America, and South America. The shapes of the continents today support this idea. The continents look as though they were part of a jigsaw puzzle that could fit together. For example, the eastern coastline of South America is shaped in such a way that it could fit into the western coastline of Africa. Scientists believe that at one point it did. Scientists believe that when the continents separated, the same kinds of organisms ended up on different continents. Similarly, fossils of sea creatures have also been found on the top of mountain peaks, suggesting that at one time, the mountains were not mountains at all, but parts of the ocean. A changing climate. Fossils tell scientists about past environments on Earth, as well as the kind of organisms that were able to survive in those environments. Whenever a dramatic change occurred to the planet, living things had to either adapt to the changes or die out. For example, the Great Ice Age did not happen overnight. It took many years for the planet to slowly cool and for glaciers to form. Animals and plants living on Earth had to slowly adapt to this change in climate. As the temperature dropped, there was a decrease in the number of forests. Low temperatures mean less evaporation, so there was less rainfall to water plants. As trees died, open grasslands spread across the equator of the planet. Animals that fed on trees either died out or adapted to eating grass. The cold also changed the appearance of animals. Cold-blooded animals such as lizards and snakes shrank in size and retreated to warmer areas of the planet. Warm-blooded animals, especially mammals, were better able to survive because they grew bigger and hairier. One famous Ice Age mammal is the woolly mammoth, who lived about 150,000 to 10,000 years ago. Mammoth fossils have been found in Europe, Asia, and North America. They grew about 3 meters tall and had thick coats of fur to stay warm, as well as layers of fat. They traveled in herds across the icy land, eating low-growing shrubs and grasses. Mammoths, along with most age animals, are now extinct. Extinction means that a species has no living members in existence. We know about the existence of mammoths from fossils. Reading the fossil record. The best place to find fossils is sedimentary rock because of how sedimentary rock is formed. As layers of sand, soil, clay, gravel, and other sediment build up in one location over time, the pressure of the layers eventually compacts the sediment into sedimentary rock. The remains of living things can become trapped in the layers of rock that built up over time. These remains include whole plants and animals. They also include traces of organisms such as footprints. Over millions of years, heat and pressure turn these remains into fossils. The fossil record includes all of the fossils that have ever been found. Scientists use the fossil record to understand Earth's history. Only a very small percentage of living things ever become fossils because decomposition happens very quickly. Most of the past life that existed on Earth will remain unknown to humans. The story of life in the past comes from the small sample of fossils that have been collected. Scientists have different tools for determining the age of a fossil. For example, if scientists don't know the age of a fossil, they can compare it to other fossils. The comparison of fossils in different rock layers to determine a fossil's age is called relative dating. Because of how they are formed, the fossils in lower layers of rock are older than fossils in higher layers. To determine a rock layer specific age, scientists use index fossils. Index fossils are certain fossils known to exist in a particular time and place. These fossils may be used to determine the age of rocks or other fossils. Because of this, they are sometimes called guide fossils. For example, a fossilized gastropod may have only existed between 130 and 140 million years ago. If the gastropod is present in a rock layer of an unknown age, it reveals that the age of the rock is likely to be 130 to 140 million years old. Wow, I learned a lot reading Glaciers and Earth's Past. I hope that you did too. I'll see you tomorrow with another one. Bye.